All right, here we go. Back at it again, getting you set for another interesting weekend of action as we have some really cool stakes races coming up from Santa Anita on Friday and then Churchill on Saturday. Quickly, we recap what happened in the Belmont Stakes. It was a great race. Golden Tempo. Got to respect that horse. Excellent job from off the pace. And our selection, Commandment. Hey, we got everything we could possibly want. We just weren't good enough. And maybe if we saved some ground, it could have helped. Maybe if we weren't so far back, it could have helped. But it looked like John Velasquez was kind of trapped to the outside the entire way around. And I thought he did a great job, especially when Golden Tempo came up to the inside of him to his left. He did a great job of holding his position and trying to hold that horse in. The horse was just stronger. So you handicap, you're in a position to win. Horse not good enough. You can't do anything about that. You just move on and turn the page. That's what we're doing today. All right, let's go. Monomoy Girl and the Chorleywood Stakes at Churchill Downs on Saturday. The possibly perfect stakes at Santa Anita on Friday. I think there's a chance for value in all three races. So we take a look at what's happening with this field. I put the green marks next to the horses that I believe are pace, right? Or at least pace participants. How about that? And nickel and dime, obviously wants to go to the front end. There's not much stopping her unless they have some kind of a disaster coming out of the gate. Question is, will the runner that just came out of the maiden breaking score be able to keep up? And I believe that they will. The question is, do they want to? Laura Cassie is a runner that did a great job breaking the maiden, going 7 furlongs at Keeneland, and has some speed to offer. And we'll see. I would like to think that on the stretch out from the 7 furlongs to the mile and a 16th in the Monomoy Girl, Laura Cassie is going to be out there on the front end. And so Rafael Bejarano is one of those riders like when jockeys move and switch colonies, and if you know anything about them, you can really take advantage and get great value on a lot of their rides. Rafael Bejarano obviously was a top jockey in Southern California, and for whatever reason, things kind of tapered off, and he's still a really, really good rider. He's not as reliable as I would like him to be, but he's still a rider I believe you can trust. So I think he's going to do his best to get out of the gate on top with nickel and dime, and they have everything they need to carry them all the way around. But I don't believe that they will. I believe that there's going to be enough pressure from La Racasse to set it up for a runner I'm giving a second opportunity to. AP's Girl was my selection in the Black-Eyed Susan. She ran third that day. There wasn't anything as far as pace scenario was concerned. There wasn't anything for her to really run at. Now, she doesn't need a tremendous setup, but she needs a tiny bit of setup in front of her. And if she gets that, she's definitely capable of making that move. What I like about AP's Girl is she has enough speed to get into position, which is what she did in the Black-Eyed Susan. She was right there in great position, I thought, throughout the race. Just, I think a better horse beat her, my Miss Mo, and I think that she just didn't have enough to run at. I think she'll get a better scenario coming up on Saturday at Churchill Downs. And the Monomoy Girl, I think she might be 9-2 on the morning line, maybe even 7-2. We'll be lucky to get that value, but I think she's your winner, and I think we'll get value. I think that's the most important aspect of that selection. All right, from that race, we're going to move on to the very next race on the card, which is a very interesting turf race, the Chorleywood at 1 mile and 3/8 on the turf course. This will be race number 10 on Saturday. I put the green mark next to the horses I believe are pace participants, Echo Lane and Chapman's Peak. Both have some speed. Chapman's Peak is probably more of a front-running type, maybe an all-or-nothing type, but not necessarily fast enough to threaten or to scare anybody off. And so with that, we have two runners that I think have some pace to offer, but I think that Echo Lane is going to be the better of the choices. I don't really have faith in Chapman's Peak. And then everything else in this race are deep closers, right? Obviously, Burnham Square is a runner that's really flourished since making that transition to the turf course after things did not work out in the Kentucky Derby preps and Triple Crown a year ago. Or 2 years ago, rather. I apologize. So, it was a year ago for Burnham Square. But for Echo Lane, he's experienced. I think that the switching in the distance is going to help. I think the horse has enough early speed to get that good positioning and not be too far off, and I think has enough of a kick to close and beat the closers, quote unquote, to the punch. Echo Lane, I also believe will be some value because I think Burnham Square is going to get a lot of support. Um, you know, Parchment Party is an interesting horse as well. And then Time Out to the outside is intriguing. But I still think that Echo Lane is the pick, has the speed, I think can get it done, and I think will represent enough value to validate the selection. How about that? Enough value to validate the selection. I like that. All right. Then we get to the race on Friday. The possibly perfect stakes, race number 7, 1.25 miles on the turf course. Once again, I've done it. I've placed the green mark next to the horses I believe are going to be pace participants. Innovative, yes. Kentucky Gal, yes. Those two runners, now they're not like wicked fast, but Innovative is kind of sneaky fast, and if you let Ricardo Gonzalez kind of get out there and dictate, he's dangerous on the front end. He can take you all the way around, and I don't think it's impossible for them to do that. And then the other horse that I think has some speed to offer, as far as being on the front end, is Kentucky Gal. But I don't expect them to duel, and I don't think that either one of them are strong enough to take them all the way around by themselves. So I just think they're going to be pace participants, and it's not really going to be a factor. It's just going to keep things nice and honest and set it up for the runner I think that can score. Now, the thing about this race, we have runners coming back from the 1.5 miles Santa Barbara. That's back on May the 3rd. And those runners coming back would be the winner, Hey Jesse, and then Kalen Dana running second, and Ulysses Rose running third. The horse that is also in the mix on that particular day, who runs fourth, is the horse that I believe has the best chance of getting the victory with the turn back in the distance. 1.5 miles was way too far, I think, for Resolve, but I think 1.25 miles is going to be perfect for her. I think she'll be in a good spot. Like I said, I don't think the pace scenario matters. And once again, there's 4 or 5 horses coming out of the same race, and so you could choose any of the horses, right? But I think Resolve, who is 4-1 on the morning line, will actually float up because I believe Hey Jesse will get play. And, I think Ulysses Rose will probably get some more play because of that nice closing performance last time out. But I just think Resolve is going to be a nice square price. I think we'll get 6-1. Yeah, 9-2, 6-1, somewhere around there. And I think that's great value, and I think that totally is value to validate the selection. And I like it. Some good races coming up this weekend, and just a chance to kind of keep it simple and stay in the mix here. So what we do every single week is we just try to find races that we believe are value and do our best to try to get the winner and get value in the process. You talk about the Belmont Stakes, both runners coming down into the stretch, Commandment and Golden Tempo, both at like 6-1. That's great value if you can find the winner. We just didn't get ours to finish, but it was still a selection that we have zero regrets in terms of who we selected in that race. All right. I'm going to wrap this up, and most of you probably know it was 27 years ago this week that the majority of us, it was about 35 to 40 people, that's including the talent, producers, writers, and researchers, we had all signed our contracts pretty much 27 years ago this week to start a brand new network dedicated 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, dedicated to horse racing. And now it comes to an end. FanDuel purchased TVG, and they will be cutting that signal coming up here soon. Most of my colleagues, this is their last week. They'll be moving on. Some of them have already moved on. And we'll see what happens with the rest of them. I wish them all the best. I don't know if there are enough jobs in the industry to come and rescue a lot of talented people, but there probably are not. And, it's an industry that just watching this weekend, every time I watch on the weekends, it just reminds me of just how tone deaf and how insular the industry is. The first thing that you have to do after every race is you have to spend an inordinate amount of time praising the connections, and it's annoying, and it's obviously something that does not resonate with your general audience or your mainstream media. They do not care. So horse racing goes back to where it belongs, right? It goes back into its corner, and no one's going to pay attention to what's happening there, and everyone will see it on big racing days. And maybe Fox will continue to do shows every single weekend, and you know they picked up the usual suspects already, Todd and Simon, and they'll probably pick up one more, maybe Joaquin Jaime, who's a reporter who's very solid. Maybe they'll pick him up. But there's a lot of opportunity out there for Fox and for Naira to kind of move into the space and take over. I will never not want to handicap a race. I think it's fantastic. The rest of the stuff, I do not care about. They can have that. So goodbye, TVG. Thanks for all the money. Appreciate you. All right, that's going to do it for us here on Horse Race Bets. In the meantime, in between time, until next time, you know how we do it here. Hey, good luck, and do me a favor. Enjoy whatever you're into. We'll be back with more action next time.